You're not easily mind controlled unless you're highly emotional.
Mm.
Because emotional ups and downs sort of inhibit the thinking and logical and rational part of the brain. High emotion extinguishes logical and rational thought in the human brain and opens the pathway to high suggestibility. And this is how you control society through the screen technology, through propaganda, mind control, and brainwashing.
So, hello everyone. A big welcome back to my Deprogrammed series, a series where we pull back the curtain on how our minds, beliefs, and behaviours are shaped without our full awareness. Now, backed by very popular demand, I'm joined again by Jason Christoff. Jason's an expert in psychological reprogramming and mind control. He trains people all over the world to recognize and break free from subconscious manipulation, whether it's coming from the media, education, entertainment, or politics. His work has taken him from private coaching to sharing his expertise at the US Senate, EU Parliament, and beyond. In our first chat, which you'll find linked below, we explored how trauma is used to keep us stuck in fear and control. But today we're going deeper, much deeper, with real world examples of mind control in action, including what's really going on with figures like Trump and RFK, how divide and conquer is weaponized against us, and most importantly, how we can all spot the programming, reclaim our sovereignty, and build real strength. This episode is packed with truth bombs, personal tools, and uncomfortable but necessary truths. I learnt loads. So if you're ready to stop being a pawn and start playing the game on your terms, this is absolutely one conversation you do not want to miss. Right, by very popular demand, I have got Jason Christoff back for another in the series of Deprogrammed. And in our first interview, Jason, you did a brilliant job at explaining to all of us the link between trauma and mind control. So today, I really wanted to get you back to dig a bit deeper, using some real life examples of what we're seeing perhaps play out globally so that it really sets the context for people to understand, oh, okay, now, when you pull out some real life examples, like you've done in your great new article on Trump's first 120 days in office, I think it really makes it real for people and hit home because let's face it, we all want to be playing in the game of life, not being played in it. So first and foremost, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, I like it that the summer's here. It's usually a slower time for me. I'm only taking select podcast interview requests and working on the documentary now. That's what we're going to finish that documentary. It's called Planet Mind Control. Explains everything very clearly for anybody that'll take the time to watch it. And if they do take the time to watch it, their life will never be the same.
Well, I want to start with that because I've just shared your little trailer for that, which is absolutely brilliantly made, I must say, Jason, on X. So if people haven't seen that, go to Jason's X account and you can see that. But that is a big undertaking because it's such a huge and complex subject. When do you think that documentary is going to be ready? Because it could be quite a game changer for lots of us.
It'll be ready for in November, and I think it'll
Yeah.
be a great time. I do see the dark forces of mind control starting to spin their little spells regarding some sort of thing they might want to organize in the fall. The fall is when the human body, if anybody wants to read about this, they can read Barbara Wren, Wren. She has a great book called Cellular Awakening, and it's shown that the body itself detoxes in October or November, and then again in like March or April. And the
Mhm.
detox of the body, the natural cleaning, is when we sort of get a stuffed up nose or get the flu. So this group likes to take advantage of natural cycles, including natural cycles inside human beings, especially their psychology. So when this group likes to attack, they will usually hijack the the natural cleaning cycles where the average person gets a little under the weather and then try to relabel it as something we should be afraid of. And so I think if the documentary is going to be out at a very good time.
That's going to be perfect. And it's so true. I mean, let's start off by there's one of the things you said in your article on Trump's first 120 days that you've talked about a lot is about how history has been really manipulated. We can't understand a lot of what's going on now without looking back into history. But one of the challenges, I think, Jason, is a lot of the history that most of us have been taught has been corrupted and rewritten.
Oh, absolutely. And even though it's being corrupted and being rewritten, it doesn't mean we can't sort of connect the dots ourselves like a good detective. Like when I was speaking at the US Senate, I couldn't believe I was on the COVID roundtable organized by Senator Ron Johnson, and he asked, to much of the chagrin of my friends who were speaking to the left and right of me, Jason, who exactly is attacking us? Who are they, Jason? And only had 2 minutes to answer the question. So I didn't, I sidestepped the answer pretty gingerly. But basically, let's take the obelisk inside Washington, D.C. We don't have to know everything about ancient history to know that, or to ask the question. Obelisks are usually Egyptian in origin. They have specific functions. I mean, there's one in the City of London. There's
Yeah.
one in the Vatican. There's actually a lot more than one. There's one major one in the Vatican, but I believe 40 were taken from Egypt to Rome, and there are, I think, 13 in Egypt. 13 around Rome and 27 under the Vatican. But we need to ask questions about why there's so much Egyptian iconography in and around these major centers of power. And then, even though the history is corrupted, we can start connecting some dots that there's probably a governing force that we're not aware of, and they like to litter their symbols or sort of hints of ownership in and around these centers of power. And then we can sort of reverse engineer the idea that it's not really us that is controlling the society. I mean, if you do the work that I do on a daily basis, it's really easy to see that there is an illusion that's primarily for public consumption, and then there's the truth about who's really ruling and what's really happening behind the scenes. So I think we as individuals really have to start focusing on, we know what's happening, but a lot of people don't know why it's happening. And
Yeah.
we really have to start focusing on why things are happening.
So interesting. I went into my local health food shop this weekend to get some bits, and there was a chap in there asking why they couldn't stock raw milk. And the lady who owns the shop was explaining that in the UK it's illegal for health food shops to sell raw milk. But of course, you can walk into the chemist next door and get all manner of pharmaceutical drugs that are like, everything has a lethal dose 50. So it's just absolutely bizarre. But what you were just saying there about the power controls and who's pulling the strings, we as humans tend to act a lot on our emotions. And so we get very caught up into personalities. So, for
Mhm.
example, let's take President Trump and talk us through one example from your recent article on his first days in office for the second term that can really help people get thinking in a different way about whether he is actually in control.
Well, there were so many things to unpack in that 12-point article that you're referring to. And I am going to continue with the 30 points, but there's a lot of mind control around Donald Trump.
Mm.
So the architects and engineers of the mind control, they're very smart to cut me off before I'll even talk to you today about one of the points. Because high emotion is like crazy glue or super glue in mind control. So you're not easily mind controlled unless you're highly emotional.
Mm.
Because emotional ups and downs sort of inhibit the thinking and logical and rational part of the brain. The more emotional I can make you, the more you'll sort of fixate on one particular point of attention. And that's hypnosis. And a lot like if you remember the old hypnosis with a hypnotist
Yeah.
with the pocket watch and
Mm.
focus on the watch. So hypnotism is a relaxed state that can be induced by making someone focus on a single point of attention. And when I said that, the average person can only envision physically with the eyes focusing on a single point of attention, but I can psychically make you focus on a single point of attention as well, like COVID. And
Mm.
I can put you into the hypnosis. You can be in a highly emotional state. And when you're highly emotional, your nervous system's always looking for the way to safety. And that means you're very highly suggestible. And although I didn't write about this inside the article, we could take the shooting at Butler. I think I
Yeah.
might have actually. The shooting at Butler, we have to be very careful of because it's a highly emotional event. Now, do we have any evidence that potentially what happened was not what happened? Well, when you get grazed in the
Yeah.
ear by a 223 round, and I have an AR-15, I have two of them actually, even as a Canadian, they're illegal now. I'm being told by the government that although I'm allowed to keep them, I cannot, unholster them and take them out of the gun cabinet or I'll be charged with X, Y, and Z. But I fired AR-15s with 223 rounds, and trust me, this is a very high caliber weapon. And even if you just got grazed, there's going to be a lot of damage. And when Benjamin Netanyahu visited Mar-a-Lago, maybe 6 to 7 days after getting sort of hit in the ear, the bandage was off. And Trump even recounted at that meeting what happened in Butler, but he didn't recount properly. The ear there was not one mark on the ear. Now, when I say that in mind control research, I'm going to have a hard time penetrating or getting people to question how the ear healed in only 6 days from a 223 round because of the emotional imprinting of that event.
Mm-hmm.
Because the average person is highly emotional, where you want them highly suggestible. You say he got assassinated and they had that great picture, and the man who took the picture was a famous photographer. The American flag was in the background. Extra emotion, extra emotion. And someone might even say, how dare you? So here comes the emotion part. How dare you? And you can see the way they say it. They're already highly emotionally charged. The suggestion was laid in by the media in and around the coverage of the Butler incident. And they say, how dare you? Someone died and got shot. Now, I don't know if someone got shot. It was reported someone got shot, but this group that I'm alluding to has no problem facilitating any sort of stage production
Mm.
where other people are removed. That they had throughout history. I mean, let's be honest. Look at what this group has done from 2020 to 2024. They don't care about anybody up to and including firing them right off the planet for
Yeah.
whatever reason. So sort of it's almost like how dare you not investigate if someone innocent was removed, because if someone innocent was removed only to add emotional energy to that situation for mind control purposes, the person accusing me of how dare you should be how daring themselves.
Absolutely.
Right, and this is how mind control operates. MK Ultra was facilitated. This is a mind control ultra. The MK, although it's you spell mind control MC. It's a German derivative. MK Ultra was brought over here brought, to North America, to America through Operation Paperclip, where they took all these illegal and unethical and immoral mind control experiments that they were doing in World War II Germany at the camps and brought all that knowledge over to the United States, which should make people question like who won and why are we friends? Why are we friends with people that did this? Why are we giving a red carpet treatment to any scientists who did this to people? Why are we taking the knowledge of torture and mind control and pushing people to the end of their lives? Like, why are we coveting that information and giving the red carpet to these people? And this is what a thinking brain is supposed to do when it's outside mind control. Like, how dare us benefit somehow? How are we benefiting? We're not benefiting as the public whatsoever. The only people that benefited from Operation Paperclip and the acquisition of all this MK Ultra research was the ruling group who used the research to show that highly emotional people are easier to they're highly suggestible, they're easier to manipulate. So we have to really start questioning things over and over on a regular basis, which a lot of people are doing. And one of the points that I really liked in the article, the 12 point, reviewing Trump's first 120 days in office, and I guess you can put that in the show
I
notes
will.
for people,
Yeah.
is that it was Catherine Austin Fitts who was a major player in, I don't know if it was the Bush administration. I think it was the Bush administration, Bush Senior, where she was in charge of, I don't housing, something about housing. And she's a financial expert. So somewhere along the line, she started noticing missing money from her particular area of government. And I think she initially found that $2 trillion was missing. So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's 2,000 million, I believe. And further investigation with someone else who was concerned about the missing money, they discovered together that it was 21 trillion missing. And then Catherine Austin Fitts and sort of her partner, accounting partner, another person who's just wants to protect American interests, they came forward and said, hey, there's 21 trillion missings here from the books. Someone's stealing it. What are they doing with it? And the more of this money goes missing, the more likely the economy is going to collapse, and the more likely the Americans will, the money that they use to think is money, its only value comes from its use being used logically and rationally and for benefit, not detriment. So if it's being stolen, number one, that's not for the benefit of the American people. You can devalue the dollar to the point where it's just paper. It's completely worthless because no one trusts it. So they came ahead and said, this is a big problem for America. Where's this missing money going? $21 trillion. I think the overall debt today of America is like a bit over 30 trillion. It's a huge amount of money. And they stopped. I don't know when they stopped, but it's certainly not up to date. There could be 30 trillion missing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when they came forward and people started to feed on this story, it was Donald Trump's administration in 2019, his first term in office, where he came out and changed accounting sort of policy and procedures so they could legally, and this is a big trend today in the government, is they legalize criminality.
Mm.
And this is what we're trying to draw attention to, because it was all parties in the US, Democrat and Republican, who had a hand in this theft. And this is what identity politics blocks, is that when you pick a side, because you're emotional and you pick someone on the red or the blue political team, you will come in with the attitude that no, no, my guy can do no wrong, because
Yeah.
if he is doing wrong, I look bad psychically on myself and I can't take that kind of introspection. It's a natural psychic defense system. So basically, the Trump administration was privy to blocking the proper, the proper accounting to show the American people where their stolen money was being stolen to.
Mm.
And the average person has no idea. And if they want to see this, just put in the missing money and put in the word Solari, Solari. So you can look it up yourself. There's a whole web page on it called The Missing Money. Solari is the group that put it together. You'll pull it up on your Google search just with those keywords, and you'll see that, this group, it's a relay race. And this is what identity politics and cult of personality and mind control programming with high emotional impact is all about. So the more you're invested in your own identity into one of these political actors, the more leeway you give them and the less likely you are to question them, because it will reflect that you don't know what you're talking about if you question them. A lot of people have a hard time doing an about face psychologically when they're given evidence that they're wrong, because it takes a really mature psyche for a person to admit they've made a mistake. Most people don't have that strength.
Yeah.
And mind control experts know that. And this is why this group that's ruling us really use high emotional impact to override logical and rational behavior. Like in Canada, the group that attacked us in Canada was the Liberal Party, headed by Justin Trudeau. And he's been in power the Liberal Party now has been in power for 12 years. They won the last election, although they closed 25% of businesses in 2020. They caused economic chaos. They doubled the prices of houses. They died suddenly, tens of thousands of people. So why were they voted back in again? Well, because high emotion extinguishes logical and rational thought in the human brain and opens the pathway to high suggestibility. So they bring in someone like Mark Carney, who actually was at one time the president of the Bank of International Settlements. And please look that up so you understand, where that man is coming from. He's not coming from a good position. But this sort of mousetrap involves all these players because they're all under the thumb of the banking cartel. So Trump was phoned and said, you talk about acquiring Canada as the 51st state. My Canadian friends were in such an emotional
Yeah.
lather. There's your high emotion. There's your high impact emotion. So the people will, again, hypnotically focus on a single point of attention, which is hypnosis. And when you focus on a single point of attention, they forgot about all the injustices, all the criminality of that government over the past 4 or 5 years. And all the new leader had to say is, there's your new enemy, focus.
Mm.
I'm going to stand up to Donald Trump. And it was a work of mind control genius, because I'll explain to you the slogan of the Liberal Party. So not only did they hypnotically want Canadians to focus on the threat of being swallowed up by the United States, they had this great slogan called elbows up. And no one's even going to know what that means. But in Canada, it represented one of our most vicious and violent hockey players from about 50 to 60 years ago, a man called Gordie Howe. And Canadians, of course, love their hockey. So again, you're getting them to focus somewhere else instead of on the tyrannical destruction of their country over the last 5 years. And you're getting them to focus on something they're comfortable and familiar with, this very violent hockey player who always would go through large crowds of incoming hockey players with his elbows up to teach them a lesson. So not only were they hypnotically focused on the Trump threat, they could associate themselves with a hockey icon that took care of business, that had this big sort of John Wick, the Equalizer, Taken, Liam Neeson
Mm.
sort of energy around him. And nothing makes the human psyche feel good, feel better than framing itself as a hero.
Yeah.
You could be a hero in 2020 by staying at home. You could be a hero. You save grandma by wearing a mask. And when you have a society of chronic underachievers that never experience the high emotion of winning because they're slaves, this is a very big appetite. I want to be a hero, right? And all you needed to do to be a hero was vote liberal, going to push back the Americans. You be like Gordie Howe, you put your elbows up. And then as soon as Carney won the election, everything calms down and we're right back into, marching lockstep with the NWO Klaus Schwab Great Reset program. And you can see how these psychological manipulation experts work. Again, refocusing attention, high emotional impact, and then you got your savior. And your savior was Mark Carney is your savior. Now, if you think Mark Carney is your savior,
You're in
you,
trouble.
you're definitely in trouble. He used to be, I think, at the head of the Bank of England as
He
well.
did, yeah. He's and they're pitting countries against each other, so it's all very well for me to laugh about it when we've got Keir Starmer. I mean, let's face it, I think one of the issues, Jason, is that there is no good option. Like in politics, it's almost, do you want me to punch you or kick you? That both options are playing out the same game, which is why people need to, once they realize that, they need to put their energy elsewhere. And one of the things I've heard you talk about quite a bit, which I love, is that to sort of go from childhood to adulthood, you've got to have some sort of suffering, you've got to have challenges, discomfort. And of course, they've removed that for most people, really. Talk us through how significant that is.
Yeah, as a mind control researcher, if I was hired to rule long term or help a tyrannical regime rule long term, I'm going to make sure you pump the slave camp as full as many painkillers as you can.
Mm.
Because again, in psychology, there's ways to produce very strong and capable adults. One of the rites of passage, they're called, that was well known in ancient history, where you would force your citizens to endure pain and
Yeah,
discomfort and failure in order to produce the fully functional, empowered adults. And this psychological, it's called the maturation cycle or the individuation cycle. Individuation just means that person's gone through the rite of passage to the point where they're an individual now. And most mind control is based on group dynamics or pressure from the group, our genetic need to fit in. So if you're an individual, you've individuated, you're less likely to be impacted by the whims and the coercion and pressure from the group. Again, you need pain and failure and discomfort to trigger that natural maturation process, which again, older societies used to do purposely. Now we willingly subvert it. And the I mean, it is tabled as some sort of a progressive step inside the evolution of a very peaceful and forward-thinking society when it's anything but that.
mm.
It is the inner magic work of these social engineers, where they know the phrase taking candy from a baby. Try taking candy from a fully functional, empowered adult. It's a lot harder. So you want to infantilize the population by removing any challenges or pain that they have. And again, when we spoke last time. I listened to the interview today as I was cleaning up the condo. We're talking about they won't fail anybody in school.
Yeah.
That's done on purpose by the social engineers because the person could fail and then they could have that awakening. They could have that rite of passage. They could feel so much pain that they actually start to study. They dedicate to a schedule. Now, habitual schedules of self-improvement, very dangerous for the group. You don't want to be having someone discover the pathway by which they can remove their pain. So that's why everybody gets passed in the public school. Everybody gets a participation ribbon instead of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth place, or sixth place ribbon. Because the person who places sixth, they might feel the pain of not stacking up, and then they might go eat better and
Mm.
stop watching TV and stop scrolling their phone and go to the gym instead of hanging out and doing nothing. And then they might become an empowered adult that knows the pathways to success, because what can make you a strong runner can make you a strong anything. They don't want any strength in the public. There's safe zones at school. Everybody's getting rewarded for falling down and holding their knee, and everybody gets more attention too. And it's not only that sort of purposeful policy, there's also a policy of the front page of the paper and all the news reporting goes to anybody that's having a hard time.
Yeah.
I don't get on the front page of the newspaper because I'm 55, 55, am I 55? I'm 55. And I don't get on the front page of the newspaper. I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. I've never been sick. I don't have any diseases. I'm self-employed. I'm financially abundant. There's no drama in that story. Here's a guy that has a life that is easy, and he made it himself. And but that doesn't get the views. The views is the person who, they're having some kind of horrific problem. They need to raise money for their new wheelchair ramp on their house. This person's disrespected them. They've been, belittled by this institution. That's the person that gets the limelight. They get center stage. They get the bursaries. They get the handouts. They get the subsidies. They get all the attention. Now, that not only benefits that person because you're getting paid to be less than you're capable of, it completely benefits the controllers who take that one story and broadcast. Now, broadcast is from the word spellcast. It's a
Mm.
broad spell casting. And they're letting people know that this is how you get your attention. This is how you satisfy your base emotional requirements for acceptance in the tribe. You fail, you become broken. And that goes out and that's picked up by the subconscious because this is a repetitive theme in all newspapers, all news reports. Successful people are never given the limelight. And if they are, they're saying he's rich, he's a bad person, he's a white rich person, bad, bad, bad. And
And
basically,
male.
the male, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you can see why I don't get any
Yeah.
accolades, even when my small town of 50,000 people, Cornwall, Ontario, Canada, I spoke at the European Parliament, US Senate, Romanian Palace of the Parliament. I spoke at CPAC. I spoke at the Japanese Parliament. Not a word from the local media there.
Yeah.
Not a word because, number one, I speak like this openly and have been doing so for 25 years. So they don't want anybody getting this material because basically, even when you hear me talk, I'm teaching you how to speak. I'm
Mm.
teaching you how to think. I'm teaching you how to connect one story over there that doesn't look like it's connected to some story over here. And I'm teaching you how to think and connect the dots. So they're always going to give people, use the media to give that psychological attention energy to people who fall down and hold their knee and never accomplish anything because that's how the human psyche works. That's how behavior operates. You will go to where you're going to get the most reward. And if the most reward can be given to you energetically or emotionally or physically because you have type 2 diabetes, because you have cancer, because you can't pay your bills, this is where the subconscious is going to lead you, which benefits the control group because it's easier to rule disempowered, dysfunctional, and diseased people rather than independent, strong, and healthy people. And this is just one aspect of the mind control mousetrap that we're in as a society on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's so true. So many questions I've got from that. I listened at the weekend to your interview with Paul Check, and so many gems in that. I'll link it for people below. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is when you came out of college or university, as we call it here, you were making some bad lifestyle choices. You were always very business successful. So, you always had that skill. And I like the way you said, your programming on the financial side was good. But you did something very different to most people, Jason, and correct me if I'm wrong here. Instead of sort of sitting there saying, poor me, I'm stuck in this cycle, you actually asked questions, found someone, and got yourself out of it. So there's going to be lots of people watching this today where they're thinking, oh shit, my health's not where I want it to. I haven't pointed this out to myself and my children. My finances aren't where they are. How do people strike that balance about not getting sucked into self-shame, but actually just recognizing it, bit of a smile on their face and saying, right, now's my opportunity to make different decisions?
It's easy as that. I mean, that's what spelling is called spelling. You cast a spell on yourself by the right language. You just use the right language. Is that, yeah, there's some guilt and shame about some of the things I did, cocaine and steroids, running around with men and women that I shouldn't have been running around with whatsoever, wasted a lot of my money, wasted a lot of my time, wasted a lot of my potential. But no one's born like that.
Mm.
I was programmed through the repetitive content, through movies like Scarface and Reservoir Dogs. There's a lot of cocaine use. And I thought, hey, I'm rich. Next step is the cocaine, according to the movies that I've downloaded as my behavior. And we are like that. We download our behavior from the most repetitive content in our environment. And we sit in front of the TV quite a bit. And this downloading portion of our brain called the subconscious doesn't know the difference between real time, what's on the screen, and imagined thoughts. So my subconscious just thought I was living in a tribe where cocaine was sort of a secondary rite of passage to wealth. And I realized, holy cow, I'm basically doing what the movies are telling me to do. And that what the movies are telling me to do is destroying me. I was almost crippled by the time I was 29. I couldn't walk up the flight of stairs of my own health club without difficulty or like shooting pain down my back and my hip.
Wow.
So I just basically said to myself, the way you're going and the programming you have is from the media, and it appears that they're programming you to kill yourself. So why don't you try to do the opposite of that and find your way through the jungle of whatever that's going to look like, and dedicate yourself. If you could dedicate yourself half as much to making your life better as you did to killing yourself, Jason, maybe you could make something and save yourself, because I was addicted and all kinds of mental problems, all kinds of digestive problems. It was just really messy. And I was just doing what I was told to do: go to the doctor for this, get a
Mm.
vaccine. I actually took a flu shot when I was 26, almost died.
Oh my God.
But I didn't know at the time. I actually
Yeah.
used the same phrase that most other people use. Imagine what would happen if I hadn't have taken it, right? I had no idea what was going on whatsoever. And I I was doing what everybody told me to do. Go to school. I went to McGill University. That's the top university in Canada for people who aren't aware. And it's like the number one university. I went there. I was completely miserable, drank alcohol all the time because that's what you're supposed to do at school. I got really sick. mentally depressed. I was suicidal. And then I went to the doctor and he gave me the exam and told me to take some medications, which I never did. But I was just doing what the programs told me to do. And then I decided to turn it around and sort of try the opposite of what they were telling me. And every time I tried the opposite, I got better. I got stronger. I got smarter. I got more abundant. I was making more money. And we do as individuals return to our old habits because they're hard to shake. And anytime I dip back into the self-sabotage tool shed for a little look around, everything went back. Less power, more sleeping, more mood disorders, digestive problems, making less money, not get along with my staff at my health clinics anymore. And you could just tell that this group wanted us polluted
Yeah.
and poisoned and toxic all the time. And that's when I started writing. That's why I have 5,000 articles. I started writing almost 30 years ago about this journey.
I love it. And you've said in lots of your writings about how it's actually scientifically proven that the more chemically toxic we are, the easier we are to program and mind control. And I mean, it doesn't take a genius to work that out. You know, when you're feeling physically, well, one, the toxins completely alter your mind anyway, but also take your power away physically. And once you start getting out, working out, trying different things, it's amazing how your resilience builds up so quickly, isn't it?
And I'll make it easy for people to understand about the poisoning is that they have these things called trail cameras, and
Mm.
they're cameras they put in nature on the trails and try and catch the real life activities of wild animals. And there was a trail camera one time focusing on this one sort of wolf, very strong wolf, alpha male of the group. And he would sit above the group on the hill, sleep with himself, overlooking the group. So strong, so big, so powerful. He doesn't need the protection of others. So he doesn't even need the group. He takes on his role as the protector, and it's just natural for him. And then, a month later, they noticed that that strong alpha wolf that was looking after the wolf pack comes limping down the trail, injured. Must have got in a fight with another pretty big animal. And instead of sleeping up away on the hill, away from the group, they noticed that that big alpha nuzzles and noses his way in right to the middle of the group. What does that tell you about weakness and your
Mm.
need of the group? And here's what the average person doesn't know. When you're poisoned, you're weakened. That's why they poison you. Poisoned, weakened animals need the group more than strong animals. So the more poisoned you are, the weaker you are. The weaker you are, the more you comply with group pressure. Most mind control is based on group pressure. What what people believe the group is doing. This is why the corrupt governments throughout the world would quickly get up to like 55% has now taken the medical experiment because the mind goes 55. Wow,
Yeah.
that's above half. I'm in the minority. I don't feel strong. For me, I don't care if it's 99 against me. I'm
Mm.
not doing it because I'm not like the strong wolf. I mean, I'm strong enough to know I'm not going to poison myself to death. So I'm intellectually strong. I can't fight 99 people, but intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually is I know I'm not going to be tricked into injecting poison into myself because the fabricated statistics is supposed to make me feel like I'm in the minority. I'm not taking that bait. So this is why they poison us with everything. So fluoride in the toothpaste, Teflon pans called PFOA. They have aluminum in the underarm deodorant. They got glyphosate on the various different non-organic produce because it disrupts the microbiome. They got the mercury teeth fillings. They got all kinds of chemicals in your Axe body spray or your Dove soap. They have Teflon on your dental floss that
Mm,
slides. There's Teflon on that. People don't even know. But you have to understand this group knows I'm going to try and poison the people through every angle possible. Cigarettes, alcohol, caffeine's one of their major poisons. It's one of their most favorite
yeah,
poisons, has a huge effect on the body. And they don't care if you bypass a couple or you're smart enough to dodge here and there. They're going to be, you're going to, they're going to get you somehow, or so they believe. So when I teach my groups, I only teach twice a year, but I teach them about all the tricks, all the poisoning tricks.
yeah,
And when you know all the poisoning tricks, all the mental manipulation, all the brainwashing, all the mind control they use to make you fall in love with poison, like the average person can't stop drinking.
yeah.
And they did that. I mean, no one comes out of the womb and starts looking for beer and vodka. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, most
There's
of us hate the taste of it when we first start.
Yeah, and there's alcohol
Yeah,
poisoning, but there's no cauliflower poisoning, right? I
no,
mean, if you want
yeah,
to hurt yourself, you go, people have to understand they know what poisons people. And we know. And they can set up that magnetic affinity for the behavior through the repetitive content. We associate repetitive content, if it's really high, with what the bigger group is saying or doing. So if anybody's out there, that's why repetitive content is key in mind control, because our nervous system processes the most repetitive content as what the bigger group is doing. And we love the bigger group. We're pack animals. We want to be with the bigger group so that we're safer. So if we see people drinking alcohol in every bad boy movie with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, and that's what these movies are for. Please
yeah,
understand, I said that movie on purpose. It's a movie series. It has four parts at this point. Bad Boys with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. But if you're a mind control researcher like me, you understand that movie series only exists to push violence and alcohol consumption.
mm,
That's it. Because it's the most prolific repetitive content in the movie. And it's been shown that you only need two repetitive impacts on the same level to change your behavior and trick your nervous system to go there thinking that it's the bigger group. And in Bad Boys, the fourth installment that I just saw, there was thousands of alcohol imprints, and you only need two, and people are going to go out there and mimic it. And if you want, I can give you some real life examples of that
yeah,
happening. Do you
yeah.
want
Please
those?
do. Yeah, go for it.
Well, in the, say, Top Gun,
Mm.
there was a recent movie release with Tom Cruise and Top Gun. It was Top Gun Maverick. The original was Top Gun. I think it was 34 years ago.
I know, I remember it well. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody
Okay.
liked Tom Cruise,
Yeah.
right? And when that movie came out, the fighter jet pilot school, referred to as Top Gun, but that's not its real name. The enrollments, the applications went up 500%.
Mm.
See, what we see on the screen or what we see, period, changes our behavior. In, say, Fast and the Furious, and we know that there's probably 10, maybe
Mm.
11 options of that going on right now. But in the original, Paul Walker, Vin Diesel rendition of Fast and the Furious, any car part manufacturer that happened to have their brand shown in the movie, their car part sales went up at least 1,000%.
Wow.
The group we're dealing with knows one thing: what's on the screen at noon will be on the street at night. If you want them to go in any particular direction, you want to have them question their gender, you want them to vote a particular way, just put it in the movies and then they're just going to follow on their own. And that's this subtle, silent tyranny where they're tricking you to execute their agendas on their behalf. I'll tell you another one, a famous one, Gone in 60 Seconds. Angelina Jolie and Nicolas Cage. It was a 2001 release, a movie about car theft. And Basically, it's your typical Hollywood plot where there has to be 100 cars stolen in a 24-hour period to clear Nicolas Cage's brother's debt with the local thug. When that movie was released in Burnaby, BC, Canada, car theft went up 60% in the weekend after the release.
Wow.
And it doesn't affect everybody, but the weaker you are, the more it affects you. And there's other positive reinforcement that could satisfy your basic needs for sort of emotional safety. Not only were you not only is the repetitive content about car theft, which can trigger mimicking and copying on its own, the man doing the car theft in the movie, Nicolas Cage, he acquires sort of sexual safety with Angelina Jolie. So not only could you be part of the tribe, you could actually, this is how the psyche would
Mm.
analyze this, you could bed Angelina Jolie. So you can get, there's different ways to sprinkle in compliance attributes into the mind control formula. You can up level the compliance quotient into the stratosphere if you know exactly what to put in. And this is also why they poison people before they go to the movies with the glucose and the fructose and the
Yeah.
caffeine and the chemicals and the red dye number fives and the M&Ms. They do that purposely because a polluted person complies more with group pressure. Group pressure is the repetitive content on the screen. Bingo, bango, bongo. You're governing through propaganda and everything else. And the average person thinks, I stole the car on my own. I applied to Top Gun Fighter School on my own. And there's another one, The Cosby Show. When The Cosby Show came out, and I'm aware Bill Cosby is not in the same, he's in the same area P. Diddy. I'm aware
Yeah.
of that. Putting that aside, The Cosby Show was a positive portrayal of an African American family. Bill Cosby, in his role on the Cosby Show, was Dr. Huxtable, an African American medical doctor. His wife Claire Huxtable, played by Felicia Rashad, she was an African American lawyer. Now, when that show did its 9-year run in the U.S., um, black enrollment in post-secondary education went up 19%. That's Dr. Jerry Croft in Santa Clara University, California, describes that as the Cosby effect. It was taken off the air, which was sort of bizarre because its
Mm.
ratings weren't going down so much to warrant a cancellation. And after the show was taken off, the black community in the United States was pummeled with repetitive content that was negative in the gangster rap category. And that decreased post-secondary enrollment, yeah, in academic
Mm.
institutions in the black community to pre-Cosby Show levels, so less than what it was when the Cosby Show started. And this is how you control society through the screen technology, through propaganda, mind control, and brainwashing. You control the repetitive content of the movies, the TV shows, the music. I mean, just look at the music today.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
completely satanic, it's
Yeah.
dark, it's devilish. And I mean, even look at sort of there's a band or a man who is popular called Beck, Beck, and he had a song when I was in university, and the lyrics was, "I'm a loser, baby, so why don't you kill me?"
Yeah. That I remember that. Yeah.
And it's shown you can hypnotically make people commit suicide
Mm.
by putting the suggestion into them and sprinkling that compliance ingredients. Absolutely. And we see like Suicide Squad, which is a movie with, was it was Will Smith in that one as well? Suicide Squad. And even InXS, a band out of Australia, I know their lead singer had a problem and he's
Mm.
not with us anymore, but they had Suicide Blonde.
Yeah.
You got to be very careful because your brain doesn't work like you think it does. It counts repetitive content in an attempt to basically fit in with the larger group. And just like a kamikaze pilot, the repetitive content was go kill yourself in World War II, fly your fighter jet into uh, a boat of like an enemy boat, and you're a hero. So you're a hero. You have your emotions are satisfied in the psyche, but you're also dead. So
Yeah.
with kamikaze programming, or what's called kamikaze mind control, don't think for a second they can't mind control you to kill yourself. And that's exactly what they did in 2020 to 2024 with what I don't even need to describe. They trick you to wait in line to euthanize yourself, sort of on a slow burn, and some people more so than ever were on a fast burn. It was pretty instant.
Yeah. So talking, I think one thing that's in the current news that might hit home for people is RFK and the work that he's doing. And we saw, whether it was last week or the week before, I can't remember, his big announcement about how he was reducing in America the costs of big pharma. Talk us through your thoughts on that.
Well, there's always a lot more to see than what they're going to present for public consumption. Now, again, poisoning the population is all about mind control,
Mm.
and they can do it in many different ways. Saying that, the United States has the number one most poisoned food supply in the entire world. There's ingredients used in the American food supply that are banned everywhere else on the planet.
Yeah.
So you got the food. The greatest vaccine consumption is also in the US. And do not forget that 90% of your immune system is from your mouth to your bum. So when you bypass, if you have toxic substance and you eat it, you got a lot greater chance of dealing with it, pushing it out into the toilet. When you push toxins and poisons under your skin, you completely bypass your immune system. So if I'm the mind controller and I know that the weaker you are, the more you comply with my suggestions, I want under the skin poison
Yeah.
as well as ingestible. I want injectable and ingestible. And the more clinically insane things I'm going to suggest, I know the more poisoned you got to be. So I'm going to start moving the needle to the injected part.
Hmm.
Going back to the prescription medication, the US population only encompasses 4% of the total world population. Yet, depending on what statistics you look at, that 4% of the US population consumes between 50 and 75% of all pharmaceutical drugs produced on this planet. They're like an open repository of poison.
Yeah.
So what was happening is not only are people being aware that every medication is poison, because you can go to the medicine cabinet and no one's going to look at Tylenol. Like if they wanted to remove themselves, let's say a movie and not in real
Mm.
life, if they're going to the medicine cabinet, again, they don't go to the vegetable crisper.
Mm.
They go to the medicine cabinet, and any medicine will do, right? It could be your Ativan, it could be Tylenol, it could be anything. So all these things are poison. And people were starting to figure out these are toxic. They don't work at doing anything except making me more sick. And people were reducing them. And in the US, they charge like 10 to 20 to 30 times what they charge everywhere else. So people were like, not only am I going to get rid of these poisons and gain my power back physically, financially, I'll always gain my power back as well. And physical strength, financial strength, emotional, spiritual, these are all huge components of the full spectrum strength push that we all have to move into if we want to deal with this group. And so when they said they're going to lower the cost of the medication, this is just a ploy
Yeah.
to try and get people to basically keep taking drugs that they were borderline going to give up sooner or later.
Exactly.
And they could smell it. And this is why they data mine as well. This is why they're so interested in the AI,
Mm.
because they could smell through their AI data mining that this is where we're going, is that people are starting to give up the idea of their
Yeah.
doctors and medications, and these high costs and making us sick. People are done with it. They're running for the exits. So they said, at least let's lower it so that we can, we can boomerang some, some of the people that were leaving that, uh, circus show. We can
Mm.
maybe boomerang some back in through the exit door, get them back into consuming by cutting their costs by 50 or 60%. And it's a band-aid. It's only going to last so long before they say, well, let's just stop taking these altogether. They don't really do anything but give me this long list of side effects that are listed on the insert of the medication.
Yeah, it's so beautifully said. And I found it quite incredible to see how many people that were speaking up about the COVID vaccines that were applauding that decision. And you're like, wow, we've still got a long way to come. Now, conscious of the time, so can we finish off with two things? Telling us some of your daily habits that you do that are non-negotiables of you, just to get people to really sink in what someone like you that's been working on this for so long does on a daily basis, and more importantly, what you don't do. And then, secondly, obviously, all your links will be below, but how would you like people to connect in with your work?
Or to connect in with my work, they can just get on my free email system. I educate in ways that no one else really dare to go.
Yeah,
And I make it easy to understand, easy to digest, sort of shorter articles, lots of confirmatory citations so people can explore the information on their own. Just email me personally at info@jchristoff.com. Single initial J, Christoff is Christ with an OFF on the end. So info@jchristoff.com. And some of my daily habits, I mean, for me, water is hugely important. So I've been in business for 31 years. And the businesses I've opened and partnered in and consulted or mentored to open has grossed hundreds of millions of dollars. And for me, money, what's money for? Things like this.
yeah,
Glass bottle water. I don't want the plastics. I get to sleep at 10. I get up and I go to the gym. Like I worked out before we talked today. I did sort of a mitochondrial workout, which means I want to get the heart rate up. I want to stress the muscles, even with low weight, to a high intensity to have my mitochondria, which is the powerhouses of the cells, replicate on their own. I Before I left, everything I have is organic,
yeah,
unless I'm out at a restaurant, and then I will try the fish, like wild caught, never farmed. I'll have vegetables, and I know I'm probably playing with a little bit of fire sometimes. Even with the non-organic vegetables, they might
yeah,
have some glyphosate on it. But basically, I use like a sort of a 95 or 90-10 rule, where I believe my health will be able to help me if I do wander out to a nice restaurant and indulge in some things that aren't fully organic. I don't drink alcohol. Caffeine is something I'm not intermittent with, but it's something when I want to power through on something, I will completely eliminate it. Like I might have, say, 15 espressos a year or something like this. So maybe one every 3 weeks.
yeah.
And I've never drank coffee till I was about 40, 44. And then I had my first espresso and I said, this is the best drug I've ever had in my life. This is unbelievable. It completely sort of zens you out and calms you down. But then after drinking it only in the summers, I had this massive digestive problem, which can be attributed to caffeine toxicity in the body. So basically, I do not drink caffeine every day. I might have one every 3 weeks. Alcohol is a no-go. I don't have any alcohol. I use organic soap, organic pomade. I like what I had today with some organic dates. I had some organic oatmeal before I went to the gym, and I had a homemade tomato soup with lots of chicken broth before I talked to you today. I'm drinking lots of glass bottled water. And if anybody wants sort of to know my habits or how I navigate. And even my computer right now is hardwired. This
Yeah.
is not, it's not, there's no Wi-Fi. I
Yeah.
have it
Same here.
hardwired. I have a 100-foot Ethernet cord to a wireless router that's like 30 or 40 feet away. And if anybody wants to know the habits that you can stack one on top of each other so that you become stronger a bit by bit, and it's not about perfection, it's about
Mhm.
progress. So you'll kind of dive in and out, become stronger and stronger and stronger. Because it took me 2.5 years to quit alcohol,
Yeah.
but it was a decreasing consumption level over the 2.5 years. And that's still a win. So see your victories, celebrate your victories, and know you won't be able to do it overnight. And you got to change everything you can change, because this group will want to poison you on every vector possible, not because one vector will give them the results they need, but any vector that you allow into you that's toxic or poisonous, it allows you to be weaker. Weaker humans need the herd more. You're more suggestible. You're easier to bully. You're easier to coerce. And I teach this all for free on my email system. So again, just get on there, and because it's hard to go over all my daily habits, but they're pretty strict.
I love it. Yeah. So all your details will be below. Thank you so much for your time. I always find it really useful. It's great to put me back on track as well. So really appreciate it, Jason. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on again, Catherine. Always a pleasure.
Take care. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. And if you feel inspired, please do share with your friends and family. This helps us spread the word and also helps me encourage some exciting new guests to take part in this podcast. And above all, stay curious and stay free.